Hello and welcome back to another episode, or I should say the final episode of this year's Road to the Zelich series. I've played in what I would consider my biggest tournament of the year, my major, if you will. Now I'll still be playing some more tournaments and some like Ryder Cup events before the end of this golfing season, before the end of the year here. But in terms of this series, my campaign, my preparation towards playing my major tournament of the year, we're at the end. This is it. If you've been following along, you know that my play hasn't been up to where I'd want it to be this year for most of the year, and especially lately. And I wish I had better news for you, but that poor form pretty much carried into the Zelich, and I had essentially my worst 2 rounds of the year. Yeah, it was not good. And I'll share with you the scores a little bit later on here, but I knew it was going to be tough going in. It was a tough course, tighter course, toughest course I'd played all year, and the green speeds were ramped up like they always are. And I knew that coming in, not only in terms of course makeup, it was tough, but also distance. Most of the tournaments I've been playing been set up around 6,300 yards. This tournament, the Mark Zelich Classic, set up at right around 6,600 yards, which isn't super long. Like, I have the length for it, but when you're not used to playing, that length, and you're hitting, 1 or 2 longer clubs into these greens, it's an extra challenge essentially. But let's start with the good news before we get into the lot of bad news. Let's start with the good news. The good news, or one of the good news, first off, is the fact that I did go under par on one of the holes this weekend. The par 3 11th hole, I birdied in round 1 and parred it in round 2, which I think is a pretty good accomplishment. That was a tough par 3. It was severely downhill. It was tight, tree lined. You couldn't really miss long, couldn't miss left, couldn't miss right. And not only that, not only did I not miss, I stuck it both days. Saturday, hit a 9-iron to a front pin, which just flushed it, never left the pin, hit about maybe 4 or 5 feet past, and started spinning back to, I think it finished around 1.5 to 2 feet. I mean, the entire time I was like, oh my God, I might get a hole in one. Like, that might have been my first hole in one. And from the tee box, it looked like it was, inches. It was literally right behind the flag. It was an exciting shot. It was great. And then I was able to convert the birdie. And then on Sunday, the second round, I was back pin, took out a 7-iron and flushed it again. Never left the flag stick once again. And it ended up hitting, I think, maybe like 6 feet, past the pin or near the pin. And it didn't roll back because it's 7-iron, but it stopped in its tracks. I had a downhill putt, and that's one of the bad things we'll get into, but missed the birdie putt, but was able to make the par putt. So the 11th hole, I'm proud that I finished under par on that hole, and like, to finish under par on a par 3 hole for a tournament, like, that's tough to do. So to be able to do that, like, that's a major positive. The other positive from this tournament is just the insane amount of out of bounds areas on this course. A lot of people found them. I did not hit a single ball out of bounds the entire tournament. Now, I hit some balls like into the woods because it's pretty much unavoidable to do with how tight the course was, but I didn't have to deal with any like stroke and distance penalties. So pretty proud about that, because a lot of people had issues with that. So yeah, that's it for the good news. It's about it. Yeah, not a lot. Bad news is that, once again, we struggled to get off to a good start. It's happened all year, and by now it's got to be mental. Like, it's just mental. Because on the range before the round, I'm hitting the ball well. Everything feels good. I feel loose. I'm in a good mental state. And then something happens between the range and the course where I just can't get it to translate on the first hole. And on Saturday, the first round, first hole, I ended up duck hooking an iron off the tee, which I had been striping like all range session and hitting more of like fades. duck hook it into garbage. I had to take a drop. I end up then like topping or thinning a bunch of iron shots, like the rest of the hole. Like I just mentally was so bad. Ended up taking a 9 on it. It was a par 5, so quadruple bogey. Like I can't get off to a good start. Like I can't just get into a round. That's something that's plagued me all year long. I just constantly feel like I'm behind the 8 ball just instantly. So in the end, I ended up finishing first round with a 102, second round with a 103. The thing is with the second round is I had my best 9 holes in the second round, even though I finished one shot worse. And that's because the front 9 was just that bad. I started with an 8 on the first hole, but then on the second hole, which was a par 3, I ended up duck hooking my tee shot into the woods, which you can't miss left on that green. There's a bunker over there and then no green to work with. And like I said, on the range, I was hitting like fades with my irons. Like it was just weird. Ended up taking an 8 on that hole. So par 3, I took an 8. So I started 8-8 on Sunday, the second round, a triple bogey and a quintuple bogey. That was 8 over through 2 holes. And at that point, like I just mentally checked out. I just didn't care the rest of that front 9 and ended up having a 56. I was just out of it. But then like it kind of switched after the 9th hole. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's try and, finish this weekend, finish this tournament with a bit of a positive, and ended up shooting a 47 on the back 9, which I would have taken 47, 47, 47, 47, 47 for all my 9s all weekend. I would have easily taken that. So it was nice to kind of finish on a bit of a good note, if you will. Talking with other people who played, some guys had 4 putts. A lot of guys had issues with greens, 3 putting all over the place. There was one guy who shot a 109 on Saturday, the first round, and then shot an 85, for the second round. Like if you're not on your game, that course like eats you alive. And I was just not on my game, especially around the greens. Even like chipping, it was just like, I didn't know how far the ball would roll out. So it was just a constant struggle. I just felt so uncomfortable around the greens, and that affected both chipping and putting. Rough weekend, rough tournament. Glad it's over. But it was a fun time. Like I enjoyed the challenge. I just wish I could just get into a round. That's something that just needs to be figured out. And I think eventually I will mentally get over that hurdle, whatever that hurdle is, whatever is affecting me between the range and the course. Because I've had similar issues like that in the past, especially with like putting. A couple years ago, I couldn't start my backswing on my putter for like an entire year. I got over that hurdle. Like that's not a problem anymore. So eventually I will get over this mental hurdle, whatever's affecting me going into the first hole. But right now it's still affecting me, and it makes it tough. I can't trust my game. I can't get into a round. I can't just, get into the flow. And that's when you're playing your best golf, is when you just kind of get into a rhythm, get into your flow, and don't feel like you're behind the 8 ball, like just all the time. We'll figure it out. Hopefully by the end of this year. Like I said, I got a couple tournaments left, Ryder Cups. We can do some good things. And the thing is, with the better, back 9 on Sunday, the second round, I do kind of feel like I may be turning a little bit of a corner. Like I'm, maybe starting the upslope from the valley I've been in. You talk about trying to get to a peak. Like I've been in a valley. I might be starting the upslope. I'm excited what the rest of the year brings, because like I said, I think we can get better here. Yeah. Thanks for tagging along. Thanks for joining me on this unfortunately unpleasant journey this year towards the Zelich. But hey, a lot of learning experiences, and that's what golf is, and that's what competitive golf is. It finds ways to humble you. It shows you where your game really is. So we're gonna learn from this. We're gonna keep going, and excited for what next year brings. Next year's road to the Zelich. We're gonna be playing another great course, Stevens Point Country Club. Excited for that one. But for this year, this is it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate that as always, but most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions, and keep hitting them straight.